Best Irish music on irishradio.org with Jerry Byrne.
Irish Radio, I'm Jerry Byrne now. Since lockdown, I was speaking to many people of the great and the good involved in music. I've got a lass with a fascinating story. She's released an album, released a number of songs, and a lot of the notice and a lot of attention being paid to her. She hails from Glenamaddy, famous for the 4 country roads in County Galway, and spent many years in England. I'm delighted to say hello to Julie Healy. Julie, how are you?
Hello, Jerry, and thank you for taking the time to talk to me, and to all your listeners. Of course, I'm here in the 4 country roads at the moment in Glenamaddy. I grew up here locally, about a mile from the town, and I went to the small school, the national school, and then I cycled my way into the convent there in Glenamaddy and did 3 or 4 years there, and then I went over to the UK for a holiday, and I stayed, and that was my fate. But regards the singing, when I was in the small school, the teacher, she's actually still living, she's in her 80s now, she would say to me, stand up in front of the class and sing a song. And you would get up and sing a song like maybe Liverpool or Quare Bungle Rye or Phil the Fluter's Ball or something like that. And you thought you were great, And then, of course, going to the convent, I was involved in the little concerts, that they had in the school. And of course in Glenamaddy we had some singing pubs. One of the famous ones was Quinn's there in Glenamaddy. It was the first singing pub in the West, and other singing pubs. And when I was a teenager, I'd cycle off to Glenamaddy, and maybe sometimes my mother wouldn't know I was missing. And I'd go into the pubs and peep around the corner, and some of the band lads would know me, and they'd call you up to sing a song. And you wouldn't know what key you were in, or what key you should be in, or where you should start, or anything about anything. You thought it was great to sing a song into the microphone, and I'd get an ice cream and come and cycle out the road again as fast as I could. But the late Joe O'Neill from Glenamaddy here, of course, was very big, into the music and bands and all that. He owns the Sound of Music ballroom here in Glenamaddy, and he put a local girl, who was Murphy, we were great friends, Margaret Murphy, with the Swallows at the time, and she had a couple of number 1 hits, and then he came to our house to put me with a band. But of course I didn't think much about it because I was wild. I was a wild young girl, tomboyish. And anyway, I said yes. But I went over to the UK that particular summer for a holiday, and I stayed in the UK. I went to Slough, and then of course I got into business. I was an entrepreneur, started my own business at 22, got married, and then throughout life you would sing a few songs here and there, if there was a party. And many times people would have said to me, oh, you should be with a band, but life didn't go that way, and I didn't have the opportunity. And of course I was married and had 1 daughter, Sinead, and you just carried on doing what you were doing, really. And I'd come home on holiday and sing another song and somewhere else. But then I started to go on the cruise liners on the Caribbean, with Gertrude Byrne, with all the show bands, and you'd sing an odd song. Maybe you'd get up during the day with Declan Ernie or Michael English at night time when he'd be playing the piano after his show on the piano bar. Go and sing a song there. And then people used to say to me, you should record, So an opportunity came about 5 years ago for me to record an album of songs. It was coincidental, actually, So I went off to the studio and I recorded 10 songs on an album, and had a big launch night in Tuam, and it was wedged and packed, and some of the top bands came along, John McNichol, Michael English, and all that. We had a great night. And then I started I did, and a guy up in Leek in Staffordshire wrote a song for me called My Lovely Glenamaddy. And that hit number 1, and it stayed at number 1 in the country charts for 4.5 months. It never moved. And that did very well. And then, of course, the John Rex Reeves, the only surviving nephew of the late Jim Reeves. In fact, he's the only singer in the family of the late Jim Reeves, And coincidentally, I came across him one evening. I was in bed and I was scrolling along on my phone, and up comes this voice in front of me that sounded like Jim Reeves, And I looked and I thought, oh, it sounds like Jim Reeves, he does. And as I was looking and looked a bit more closely and listened and read some comments and stuff, it was John Rex Reeves, a man I never heard of. And I was scrolling through all his, his website, and there was no phone number, but eventually I came across a number that he had given to somebody in some comment. So I wrote this number down, and I thought to myself, I'm going to ring this number now. And the next day, which I did, and there was an answering machine, and I left a little message on this answering machine. But on the Monday evening, the next day, I decided that I'd try this number once more. And this lady answered the phone, and I said, was that, John Rex Reeves' office? And she said yes. And I said, is he available, or when would he be there, or does he be in the office? She said, this is his wife, Mavis, speaking. And I told her who I was. I was in Ireland, in a little corner of the world, and she heard of Ireland, but she had never been. They had been to Sri Lanka and South Africa and Australia on the tour, But anyway, she gave me their address. So I sat down in November, and I wrote a lovely letter. I put my CD in, that Glenamaddy song, and I said to them in the letter, it would be very nice if they'd never been to Ireland, we'd love to have them. So I never heard anything until February, which was 3 months later. And one evening I was going into the studio, and this email came through, and it was from John Rex Reeves. And he said, hi, Julie, we've only just received your lovely letter and your CD, your song. And I don't know how it got delayed in the post for 3 months, but it did. So he said, we'd love to come to Ireland. We've never been to Ireland. And of course, Jim Reeves toured here in 1963, May of 1963, the year before he was killed in that fatal crash. So we organised, that was February, we organised, I was doing a big Tom tribute night in Glenamaddy in the September with artists and so on, and I donated a beautiful seat. And anyway, John Rex, they had to get passports and they had to reorganise themselves. So we got all that organised, and they came over in the September of 2019. I collected them at Dublin Airport. I managed to get into the National Stud. We went to the Chocolate Factory. We went to Newbridge, a jewellery store as well there in Newbridge. Got a lot of sponsorship. And we stayed in Dublin for the night, and then we came down to Galway, and they spent a month with me. And I toured them around Ireland, and we went here and we went there, and everyone I met, I was stopping them, we went to Knock, and we went different places. I'd be saying to them, do you ever know Jim Reeves? Oh, yeah, sure, everyone knew Jim Reeves. He's a big household name here in Ireland still. And I used to say, well, this is his nephew. And then Michael English asked if he would John Rex he was doing a concert up in Tullamore one night, and he said, would John Rex like to sing? Oh, sure. I said, I'm sure he'd love to. So off we trotted up there, and Michael brought him up on stage, and John Rex sang 3 or 4 lovely songs in Michael's concert, and then Jimmy Buckley had him, and they had a wonderful time. But while he was here, Hot Country, the tribute night I was doing in Glenamaddy for the late Big Tom, Hot Country came to record that night because I had 22 artists. And then Hot Country, Hugh O'Brien was saying to me, don't let him out of the country until you record with him. But John Rex, of course, being in his 80s, he had a show in Nashville, for about 14 years himself, because he lives in Humble in Texas. That's where he was born, not far from the late Jim Reeves. And he never sang with any woman in his life. So I had a guitar in my house that I brought back from Nashville that I had bought in the shop where Elvis Presley first got his first guitar. And anyway, he had this guitar every morning and he was singing and strumming away. So we went to the studio and we recorded 4 duets, and it was wonderful. And of course, John Rex was meant to come back a year ago, but of course with the pandemic, the way things happened, of course he couldn't come back. But I'm in touch with himself and Neva down there in Humble in Texas. He's doing very good. And his father, Buford, was the eldest brother of the late Jim Reeves. And of course John Rex, being a singer, was more like a brother, I suppose, to Jim. and they used to play golf, and he was only with him 3 or 4 days before he was killed, So, and he always Jim always spoke about loving Ireland and the Irish people and the time that he had when he was here. And he had recorded a few Irish songs on his album.
Indeed.
So that was the story of John Rex, that, which was really a wonderful experience, because I remember where I was when I heard the day that Jim Reeves in July the 31st was killed. I was about maybe, 12 or 13. I'm giving my age away now. But anyway, that's okay. I'm almost 70. So I never thought that I came from humble beginnings, born in a little thatched cottage just on the edge of Glenamaddy, where we had no running water like Dolly Parton, and no toilets, none of that until later years, like many more people, not just me. But there was 4 girls in the family, and this little town went to the bog and did the hay and did all the the farming stuff that people would do at that time. But I remember saying, to my parents, I was the 3rd girl, and then there was 1 girl younger than me, I'm getting out of here when I'm a big girl. And they used to say to me, where are you going? Or where? Because I was wild, Where are you going to? I don't know, I said, but I'm not staying here. Because of this hard work, of like being in the bog, doing the turf and doing the hay. And that was I could never see any money in it. But anyway, I did strike off. I was the only one of the 4 that took flight. And I travelled to over 63 countries around the world. So I was very fortunate. God dealt me a great hand. And, I was very successful in business as well. But like everything else, you had the ups and downs of life. Life wasn't always perfect. We don't live in a perfect world. But I've been truly blessed with wonderful health. I've never been sick in my life, maybe a head cold or something. And blessed with things, opportunities coming my way. And the fates offering me wonderful opportunities. So I studied in London. I did astrology and had my hands read, and do a little bit of that myself here for other people, on a part-time basis, nothing too major, And of course, then I did a television program down in Reading. I did a little television program for a couple of years for Thames Valley TV. And worked on 107 FM a little bit on there. And then I came back to Ireland to live here in 2005 through tragedy in my life. And I have a business in Galway City that my daughter now has, but I wanted to get into radio again, because I'd say I'm a people's person and I have an inquiring mind, and I like to communicate, with people, a very much people's person. So I'm on the radio now for the last 6 years or 7. On Irish Country Music Radio, and I thoroughly enjoy it. And I, time permitting, of course not now, the past year, getting out to meet all the artists, playing all their music, giving them some little bit of advice, and I suppose basically I am where I am now. And then what happened about this latest song was James Shevlin. We went to school together, but he's a couple of years younger than me. He would have been the classes below me. But you'd only be looking when you'd be going to the college of the people maybe in your own class or the class above you. And anyway, I hadn't seen James for a number of years. He's only about maybe 6 miles away from me here. And when I was doing the big Tom night, of course, a neighbour said, well, you might ask James, because James was in a band. He's a retired teacher now, but he was in a band and he played guitar and keyboards and that, and writes a few songs. So, courtesy, you'd always ask the local people or the people nearer in your county to come along, to join and get up and sing a song for the occasion. And James did that. And but anyway, I didn't see much of him in the year. But one night, there last November, I was interviewing Michael English on the radio, and I was going through the WhatsApp, and I was sending out messages, tune in, everybody. I'm interviewing Michael. And of course, I sent one to James. And the next day, James sent me this poem. And he said to me, Julie, here's a poem that I wrote. You might like to read it out sometime on the radio. People might like to hear it. So I didn't read it there and then, but when I went to bed late that night, I started to read this poem. And I thought to myself, I have a song in this poem. Because I rang up PJ Murray prior to that, and I said to him, PJ, I want to will you help me write a song, or will you write a song for me about the Sound of Music ballroom in Glenamaddy? And PJ said, will you be better yourself doing it than me, but I'll certainly help you and make some notes, and we'll meet up and we'll... But when I read the poem that James had sent to me, I said to myself, I have my song. So I rang James and I said to him, I'm going to record this as a song, but the only thing you'll have to do is put a little bit of music to it, and we need a chorus. But James wasn't long doing that. I think he had it done. He probably stayed up one night to do it, and he sent it to me. So off I went to the studio and recorded it, a couple of months ago or 6 weeks ago, and thus we have the song now, The Sound of Music Ballroom. And of course it's a very famous ballroom. It was owned by the late Joe O'Neill, and everybody knew Joe O'Neill, because if you went to a dance in London or anywhere in the UK with the showbands, you know, some of them have passed on now, you would see Joe O'Neill Sound, Glenamaddy, phone number 47. So Joe is a few years dead now, maybe 6 or so years passed on, and his wife. And I used to meet them, you know, on the cruise liners as well, on the Holland America liner in the Caribbean. And he was a great man, and he had a shop here in Glenamaddy, and he supplied all equipment to all the show bands. Thus, Joe Connett, who worked for Joe for many, many years, is still here in Glenamaddy and supplying and helping and doing all the sound for a lot of the bands as well, you know. So, here I am with my song, and yesterday we did the video. Hugh O'Brien from Hot Country came to Glenamaddy from Cork to do the video in Glenamaddy and the Sound of Music. And it's amazing because so many people have contacted me, people who are now in America and the UK and different places, who danced in that ballroom, because it was like living in Las Vegas at the time. Of a Saturday night, you'd have coaches coming in from Athlone and from Galway and Loughrea and Roscommon, and everybody trucked in on the big coaches for the Sound of Music, for the dance. And of course every show band played on there, every band that you could remember. I was talking to T.R. Dallas today, and he said he worked there for years, he played there for years as a relief band, you know, before the big band would come on stage, and then they'd be shouting for more. So I stepped inside that ballroom yesterday for the first time in over 50 years. And it's actually a cousin of mine that owns it, and you couldn't believe the big ball is still there, the light and all the lights and the signs, and the stage is still there, and the floor, my word, it must have been an expensive floor. It's still there, and there's not a mark in it, and you know, it's done, there's some other business going off in there now. And the carpet up the back stairs where we go to the mineral bar and stand up, like I sit on the balcony top and look down at the bands and the mainliners, and we'd be looking at the guys all dressed up with their lovely suits. There'd be 7 or 8 of them, you know, in the band. Most bands in those times had 7 or 8, and they'd be all dressed in their blue or whatever colour outfits they had on, and we'd be saying, he's such a one and he's such a one, and the drummer is mighty, and you know, people reminiscing about all that. It's nice to go back in your life, if only for a few moments in time, you know. We can't unring a bell, but memories are a wonderful thing, you know, for people. And it's like school, I suppose. Some people don't have such great memories. But of course, dancing years, you'll always have memories, you know. Where you met your husband, and where your boyfriend, and is he living, or is he dead, and who did he marry, and where did he go? And likewise, you know, the fellas probably the same thing saying about the girls. Where is she, or who did she marry, or where did she go? So there were so many calls in the last couple of weeks, which was absolutely wonderful for people to say they'd love to be back there once more, you know.
Indeed, must be back. You must be back with great, great memories doing. But for many years, you were based in Reading. You had the Battle Inn. Yes,
that's right. Brendan and myself. Brendan, of course, was known far and wide. He did a lot of things, and a lot of Irish was, you know, in Reading, immigrated from Ireland, particularly in the 80s, you know, more the 80s and the 90s, all the young lads coming over, and Brendan had outside work as well, along with the pub. It was the busiest pub west of London. And another thing that Brendan was involved in is doing funerals. Now, when I say he was doing funerals, he would have he opened up an account in the bank, and he'd have 2 lads or 2 men every Friday and Saturday night when, you know, the lads that finish their work during the week, they would come in and they would go around to the Irish pubs in Reading, and they'd do a collection of somebody died, and every man that died, was how old he was or wherever, he got a nice burial and was sent back to Ireland and all the trimmings with him. So Brendan Healy would be known from the battle in far and wide.
Indeed,
and,
so.
the battle. Of course, it's closed now, and a lot of the Irish, sadly, have passed on, and many of them from different counties in Ireland at a young age. Now, I was very much involved with football and hurling on the radio. I watched, when the season starts, nobody would get me away on a Sunday from the TV, because I'd watch the minors and the seniors hurling and football, And of course, every county man, as I've heard, most counties had football, and some counties only, maybe there was 8 or 10 counties that did hurling, And there would be the bantering and the betting. And I had all the hats and the socks and all the different things for every county. So when the matches would be on a Sunday, can you imagine in an Irish pub where there'd be music and the jukebox going and all the lads bantering whoever, Kerry, Mayo or whoever was playing. And the amount of men that flew back to Dublin, for a match, they'd go over Saturday, come back every Monday evening, some of them with their heads down, and they didn't win or whatever the case may be, We always played, next year, there's always next year, But those occasions, I could write a book about that episode of the pub trade just on its own, really and truly, without coming back when I did return to Ireland and was in my different business in Galway City, and saw how the young ones, the youth of Ireland at that time, operated from the university and the colleges, and I was involved a bit in that. So there was two sides to my life. There was the big side in the UK of being in business in the pub trade for 37 or 8 years, and then there was the side in Ireland. Ireland was booming as well, and then of course the crash came, and now we have this pandemic. But life goes on, life changes, everything changes, nothing stays the same forever. It's not meant to. People pass on, and people are born, and that's it. I wasn't brought up in the era with this technology that there is now, and I'd never be happy with technology until I could download some food, with the computers. But the young ones it's all a different scene now, and it's wonderful, but we have memories, and I think that maybe at my age now, we had the best times with the showband era. Now, some of those people that I mentioned in the song, some of them have passed on, but there's about 5 of them still living, which is wonderful. Johnny Carroll is still lively, and he rings me quite often every week. And there's Murphy the Swallows, and there's Philomena and Margot, because they're still, and there's someone else alive, and I can't think, but some of them are passed on, and that's the circle of life, really.
Indeed, I've interviewed a number of them. Johnny Carroll included, Margot, Philomena, etc. And it's great to see them. Great to see them still going as strong as ever. Julie, listen, you've had a fascinating life. Well done on everything that you have done, and well done on the latest song. And you're still continuing to record, and I'm delighted to hear it. And well done that you're keeping going and keeping things up and running and doing the videos and all that, despite the pandemic and everything else that's happening.
Yes, it's wonderful to be able to get out, and of course, I live in Galway City, but because of the radio, I can travel to Glenamaddy, and it will say come down on Wednesday and stay for 2 nights here, and we meet a few locals. All those small towns now are all changing with the pub, and the pub scene is changing anyway, because with drinking and driving and smoking, and which is all a good thing, I suppose. And maybe the young ones are going for takeaways or carry-outs or whatever. So the whole thing is changing in all the small towns, not just Glenamaddy, But Glenamaddy is Big Tom recorded the song, as you know, the 4 Country Roads, and that was his theme song. Not only was it his theme song, it was his best-selling song. A lot of people would have thought it was Gentle Mother. Gentle Mother never got any higher than number 7 in the charts. So I was very fortunate because I lived away and I would come home a lot to, the family. I met Big Tom once or twice or 3 times before he passed away. In fact, I had the opportunity of going up to Orem to his house through. They made an appointment for me because he was sick at the time, and I spent 3 or 4 hours with him, and I had a big write-up on his life, and I said to him, Big Tom, he didn't know me, he never met me other than I was from Glenamaddy, and I read out a lot from his life, such, and he said, there's only one thing wrong there, Julie. He said, I never had an operation on my throat for my voice. I just lost it for a while. And then it came back. It just came back, which was the lap of the gods it did. And I brought him tomatoes, and he didn't know why I brought him tomatoes. And I brought him a block of ice cream. I said, you better put that in the freezer. And he said, do you like ice cream? I said, I do, but you might like it more. Because I said you worked for the ice cream factory in London, and that's why you put on all the weight we left. Bless him. He did a jingle for me for the radio. He didn't know what a jingle was, and he said, I don't know what, I never heard of the jingle. He didn't know what I was talking about. So I explained to him what it was, and he read out the 4 lines. I recorded them, and the jingle, So it was lovely to have met him. And then, of course, I went down to his funeral and that, But, yeah, it was lovely. And I was so happy that I could meet a lot of like Brian Call and some of those, that have passed on. Of course, Johnny McEvoy, he's a balladeer, isn't he wonderful too? He's still there, and he sings every week, and up there on the Facebook you see him. So I'm delighted that I had the opportunity of coming back to my roots, and perhaps if I was in England, life would have gone in a different direction. But you never know what your fate is in life, and my advice to the young ones today is to take the opportunity to do something. It's better to be sorry for doing it than sorry for not doing it. But that doesn't apply to everything, breaking the rules for the Garda Síochána or whatever. But take the opportunity and go for it. And I'd be building them their confidence. There's some wonderful young artists coming up now, and it's absolutely wonderful. And they'll have put their own mark on the music scene. And who knows, in years to come down the line, they'll be recording maybe a song that people wrote, or, whatever, like we are looking at going back now to Hank Williams and Hank Lachlan and all that, and the circle of life will carry on. So that's the way it goes, isn't it? And
indeed. Julie,
life is very short. Life is very short,
Indeed so, and you're certainly knocking the socks out of it and have done so. Julie, listen, it's been fascinating to talk to you, it really has. Listen, keep on going, and well done on everything you have done. It's been lovely to chat to you.
It was lovely, and you too, Jerry, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk to you and listen to your radio show, and to all your listeners wherever they are. I'm sure there's some of them maybe that I went to school that will remember me when they hear this little chat or whatever, and it's nice to talk to you, and thank you for allowing me to do that.